The haunted subway, a dark secret behind the tracks. The subway was never meant to be a place of comfort. It was built for efficiency, cold, metallic, and filled with the echoes of hurried footsteps and mechanical roars. But at night, when the last train had passed and the station was empty, it became something else. Something unnatural. Chapter 1: The Whispering Tracks. Jake was an ordinary high school student who took the subway every evening after his part-time job. The old subway station near his home, Holloway Station, had long been rumored to be haunted. Strange disappearances, eerie whispers, and shadowy figures spotted near the tunnels. But Jake never paid attention to ghost stories. That was until one night, when he was the only one waiting for the last train. The fluorescent lights flickered, buzzing faintly. The air smelled of damp concrete and rusted metal. As Jake scrolled through his phone, a faint whisper brushed past his ears. It was so quiet, so soft, that he thought it was his imagination, until he heard it again. "Run." Jake looked up, his heartbeat quickening. The platform was empty. He turned around, expecting to see someone behind him, but there was nothing except the dark tunnel stretching into the unknown. Chapter 2: The Train That Shouldn't Be There. A gust of wind rushed through the tunnel, and suddenly, a train approached. But something was wrong. The train was old, far older than any subway car Jake had ever seen. Its metal exterior was rusted, the windows fogged up as if hiding something inside. The doors opened with a loud hiss. Jake hesitated. There was no one inside, but something about the train felt off. The seats were torn, the overhead lights flickered, and the air inside was freezing. He stepped inside cautiously, telling himself it was just an old model still in use. Then the doors shut behind him, and the train took off. Chapter 3: Passengers of the Past. At first, the subway car was silent, except for the rattling of the wheels against the tracks. But as Jake sat down, he noticed something strange. The advertisements on the walls weren't modern. They were from decades ago. Black and white posters promoting soda brands and old-fashioned clothing. The subway map didn't even match the current system. That's when he saw them, shadowy figures sitting in the seats across from him. At first, they were transparent like smoke, but slowly, they became clearer. Pale faces, sunken eyes, dressed in clothing from another era. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The subway was empty a second ago. Where had these people come from? One by one, they turned to look at him. Their mouths opened, but no words came out. Just a whispering wind that sent chills down Jake's spine. Then, the train jerked violently, and the lights went out. Chapter 4: The Vanishing Station. When the lights flickered back on, the passengers were gone. Jake was alone again, but his fear had only grown. The train was speeding through dark tunnels, but no stations appeared. He checked his phone. No signal. The clock had frozen at 12:06 a.m. Then, finally, the train slowed. It stopped at a station Jake had never seen before. The sign above the platform read, "Holloway Station, closed since 1987. Jake's blood ran cold. That was impossible. Holloway Station was still open. He had just gotten on from there. The doors slid open with a mechanical hiss. Cold, stale air drifted inside, carrying the scent of something rotten. The platform was covered in dust and decay, as if untouched for decades. And then he heard it again. "Run." But this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was a voice. A desperate, terrified voice coming from the dark end of the platform. Chapter 5: The Truth Beneath the Tracks. Jake stepped out, his legs shaking. The walls were covered in faded newspaper clippings and warnings scribbled in red paint. The train takes them. The train never stops. His heart pounded as he moved toward the voice. A faint figure stood near the edge of the platform, barely visible in the dim light. "You shouldn't be here," the figure said. It was a young man, his face half hidden in shadows. This station was closed after the disappearances. Disappearances? Jake echoed, his voice barely above a whisper. In 1987, a train just like this one arrived at Holloway Station. People got on. They never got off. The train never stopped again. Kept going. taking passengers who didn't belong. A horrifying realization hit Jake. He wasn't supposed to be on this train, and if he didn't leave now, he never would. The sound of an approaching train rumbled through the tunnel. The young man's face turned pale. "You have to run, before it takes you too." Jake didn't hesitate. He sprinted towards the stairs leading up, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, the train doors opened again, but he didn't dare look back. As he reached the exit, a deafening horn echoed through the station. The ground trembled, and just as he stepped through the rusted gates, everything went black. Chapter 6. Back to reality, or not. Jake woke up to the sound of an approaching train. He was back at the modern Holloway Station, sitting on the same bench he had been on before. Had it all been a nightmare? The digital clock above read 12:07 a.m. Only a minute had passed. But as Jake stood up, he noticed something that made his blood turn to ice. A torn newspaper lay beside him. The headline read, 1987, Passengers Missing After Mysterious Subway Incident. And in the reflection of the subway window, for just a second, he saw the shadowy passengers staring back at him.